Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Akoth that may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai. I'm back in here with another quick and Yahweh Rakazah is always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I'm going to be discussing Israelites in the Caribbean versus Israelites in Babylon, right? And really what inspired with this lesson was a video I was watching of another brother in the UK, and it made me to kind of like make a spiritual jot note of the contrast between our people very, very close to the center of Babylon, dwelling in Babylon, versus how Israelites are on operating in their distant tribes, for example. I'm using, for the sake of this lesson, I'm strictly using the Caribbean as an example, right? Because I used to live there. And something that I observed was that essentially the further away particular Israelites were, they held on to more fragments of their culture. So essentially, in the Caribbean, for example, and I'm not neglecting the curses. The curses are still very, very dominant there, but the other side of it I wanted to actually bring out was the fact that Israelites, especially in the Caribbean, that I noticed recently, is that our people further away that they were from Babylon the Great, America, and its affiliates, Canada, the UK, so on and so forth. The further that they were away from this place, the more they held on to more of their culture. More of their culture was retained, whether they knew that they were Israelites or not. They were things that they done, that they practiced in the spirit without actually knowing that they were Israelites, right? So with that point being made, I want to bring out one quick scripture. Just bear with me on this. As a matter of fact, I'll give you BLB. Just bear with me on this. Okay, this is Romans chapter 2, verse 14, and it reads in the KJV, "For when the Gentiles, which not have the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, these not having not the law are a law unto themselves." In the NLT it says, "Even the Gentiles who do not have the Most High's written law show that they know his law when they instinctively obey it, even without having heard it," right? So essentially, the Gentiles who were Israelites that fell away from their customs, due to going under. When you read in the Apocrypha about the Maccabees, and you read about individuals such as Antiochus that put a bunch of hell and upon our people, and a lot of the Israelites eventually became Hellenized. So during the time of Paul, there were Israelites many generations down the line that actually didn't even know who they were, and they were following the customs of the Greeks, right? And this is what something that Paul had to tackle, right? And But when you go into the word Gentile here, it goes into the word ethnos, and it because the blue the BLB will go off on certain things. For example, when it goes to ethnos, it talks about the human family. But pursuing to, I think it's Deuteronomy 32, we know that the Most High separated the nations, right? And the only people that the Most High Yahweh Bashim Shah only cares about is the Israelites, right? He only made a covenant with the Israelites, right? Just to clear that up, because a lot of people might see Gentiles and they might think it's about everybody. But essentially, the point of this verse I wanted to bring out was the fact that there were things that Israelites, I noticed that they practiced certain customs and certain traditions, and there were things that they may not have known about strictly, like, for example, keeping a beard, for example. They may not know about these things, but they do these things in the spirit, right? Without actually knowing the actual, okay, you're supposed to keep your beard, right? And one of the things I wanted to touch upon was for example, manners, hospitality. Like, for example, if I went to somebody's house, and you might spend about a couple minutes there. They might invite you in, and they actually might treat you as their own. Essentially, they're very, very, essentially they're very, very hospitable, and that's one of the things I noticed about Jake. Especially in the Caribbean islands, they're very extremely hospitable. They always want to give what they have, especially if they don't have that much, right? And that's very scriptural, right? So I want to get that, so as a matter of fact, I'm going to get two precepts and then put this one on the list here. Okay, this is Tobit chapter 4. I want to start at verse 7, but the point's in 8, so just bear with me. It says, "Give alms of thy substance, and when thou givest alms, let not thine eye be envious." So don't let your eye be I can't explain the word envious. Let me just get in the etymology. Just bear with me. Okay, here it says jealousy, rivalry, hatred, ill will, malice. Okay, so don't have these things in your heart, right? And that's one of the things I noticed about Jake in the Caribbean. So where was I? Verse 7. I'll read this again, and it says, "Give alms of thy substance, and when thou givest alms, let not thy eye be envious." So don't have any malice, in your mind or your heart, right? So neither turn thy face from any poor, and the face of the Most High shall not turn away from thee. Verse 8. If thou hast abundance, give alms accordingly. If thou have but a little, but be not afraid to give according to that little. And that's one thing that I noticed, that Jake and the Caribbean islands, especially like the older generation, they strongly exemplified, like when you go to their dwelling, to their place, they're always willing to offer you some food. They're offering to give you a drink. They make their place comfortable for you to stay there, essentially. And that was one of the things I noticed in the spirit, that Israelites, and that's something that is kind of lost, especially with Israelites in Babylon, because in Babylon, the curses are, they're a lot more heavy. And Jake here has a way more of an evil eye towards each other. They have a complete disregard for the elderly. I remember back in for example, when they were having the BLM protests, a lot of the elderly, they got A lot of them, Jake, ran up on some of them, and they didn't give a shit about these people. Excuse my French, right? And about even the businesses in their own neighborhoods, they could care less about, you know, and it's your very own people who are working there, right? So our people have a very strong evil eye towards each other, especially in Babylon the Great, because a lot of us are caught up in this gang life, this life where there's just a lot of animosity towards each other. Especially, there's even more divisions amongst Jake, I find, in Babylon the Great, for example, because we're always warring against, even like I'm just using the Caribbean as an example, and then there is a plethora of different countries in the Caribbean. You have like Trinidad, and you have Grenada, you have St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and there's all this animosity amongst ourselves, right? And and they don't have a lot of that animosity in the Caribbean. It's only when you're over here, we're so even more divided over in Babylon and its affiliates, as opposed to in your respective tribes, where you are, right? Let me get. There's another precept I wanted to get. Just give me 1 second. Oh, and before I read this as well, another thing that I noticed is that there's no emphasis of skin color. A person, like, for example, in Babylon, there's one thing that people like to perpetuate is this black, white, Asian, Hispanic, like, there's less of that, a lot less of that there. There is no overemphasis of people's skin color, because there are some people a little bit more on the darker side, or on the more light side, right? And that animosity isn't there. That light skin, dark skin thing that people like to talk about, that's in Babylon, all of that animosity is not even there, right? So, anyways, before I ramble on too much, this is Leviticus chapter 19. I want to start. Salakia. I want to start at verse 33. And it says, "And if a stranger sojourn with thee in the land, ye shall not vex him. But the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself. For ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord Yahweh, your power." And it says in the NLT, "Don't take advantage of strangers who live among you in your land. Treat them like native born Israelites and love them as you love yourself. Remember, you were once foreigners in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord Yahweh, your power," right? And goes into a conduct. And this is a conduct that our people strongly still exemplify to this day in the Caribbean. And I've noticed this, because our people still practice a lot of these things, right? And these strangers are your own people, essentially. They're not like other nations, right? And so let's get another precept, actually. I'll get two more, and then I'll just close it out, because I don't want to make this lesson too long. But Yahweh, as always, I hope that this is edifying. Okay, this is Jeremiah chapter 51. I'm going to start at verse 7, and it says, "Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord Yahweh's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad." And one of the reasons I wanted to bring this out, because you have a lot of Caribbean nations that are fighting and trying to push away this wine that Babylon is constantly pushing upon the other nations. For example, a strong example is the alphabet lifestyle. And this is one of the things that they want to push into the curriculums, and saying that okay, it's okay and it's pleasing for two men to get married, it's pleasing for two women to get married, and and actually creating this confusion, right? And this is part of that wine, referring to these philosophies that Babylon continues to perpetuate. And one of the things I noticed was, the further away the Israelites were, they were more likely to shun these things, right? Because they know in their spirit, okay, two men or two women, or the so-called TRAN transformer, they know in their spirit that these things are not right, right? And they shun and ridicule these things, as opposed to Israelites that have been, sauteing in the land of Babylon, that are completely so gone far left, to the point where they think that this lifestyle, that culture, on the left hand side is okay. They think that alphabet lifestyle is okay. They think that feminism is okay. And our people, from what I've noticed, they shun these things. Israelites that are dwelling, in the Caribbean, right? So that goes into that wine that Babylon, UK, America is constantly, and they're still constantly pushing upon, your respective tribes. And another example was earlier this month was I believe it was Uganda and Ghana. They were pushing that, and that's one of the reasons why Kamala Harris, wanted to make all this, go do all these trips in Africa and talk about human rights and all that kind of stuff. These people are, they, Babylon's gonna get what's coming to them. I'm just gonna leave it at that, right? And anyways, so that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring this out. And I'll just get one more. Okay, this is First Kings chapter 17. I want to start at verse 8, and I'll read down a little bit. And it says, the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto him, saying, arise and get thee to Zarephath, which belongeth to Zidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow woman to sustain thee. And when he arose and went to Zarephath, referring to Elijah. And when he came to the gate in the city, behold, a woman was gathering sticks. And he called to her and said, fetch, I pray thee, a little water in a vessel, that I may drink. And she was going to fetch it, and called her and said, bring me, I pray thee, a morsel of bread in thy hand. And she said unto the Lord, thy power liveth, I have not cake, but a handful of meal in a barrel, and a little oil in a cruse. And behold, I am gathering 2 sticks, that I may go dress it for me and my son, that we may eat and die. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring this out was the hospitality that this widow woman offered to Elijah. And that hospitality is one of the traits that I noticed that, amongst other traits as well, that our people, in the Caribbean, they still exemplify these things in the spirit, not excusing the curses and not excusing, them going off, but, they were practicing a lot of these traits in the spirit. For example, I noticed they were, just a little side note as well. I noticed that, there were more women that were dressed a little bit more modestly, with dresses, and, they spoke very, very, politely. People are more well-mannered, so on and so forth. But our people have become a bunch of degenerate plants. The closer and closer they settled near Babylon, or they're Babylon adjacent, Canada, UK, and all these countries that have followed after the ways of Babylon, right? So, anyways, I'll leave it, leave it there. Yahweh says as always, this video was edifying, but this is one of the observations that I made, about Israelites who are there and Israelites versus Israelites that are marinated in that Babylonian wine. But anyways, hopefully you got something out of this, and I would just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bashim Yahweh Shai, Bashim Makakadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us His truth. Till next time, I say Shalom.